Wonderful. Okay, we are recording. Alex, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. What about yourself, Stu?
I'm fine, thank you, mate. I'm fine. Where are you today?
I'm in London at the moment. Yeah, I'm just down here a few days, talking about the new record coming out and stuff, enjoying the sunshine, not enjoying the beginning of World War III, etc.
Oh, mate, I can't stop watching it. It's like I just can't believe what I'm seeing.
I know it's appalling. It's kind of you're right. It's incomprehensible, isn't it? We've played in Odessa and Kiev before, and I know people over there. And to think about what's happening right there just now is, yeah, it's incomprehensible. I can't get my head around it. I'm totally in shock. Yeah, awful. Anyway, here we are.
Should we talk music?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's take our minds off it. Let's talk about something good instead.
Wonderful. Well, I want to start your playlist today, Alex. If you can tell me, please, the song that you think's got the greatest ever intro.
Well, I started thinking about this, like a song, and what makes a good introduction, and it really is, to me, a good introduction is like a sense of suspense before the delivery of the actual song itself. And so before I could think about it, I was kind of like thinking what the parameters are that make a good introduction. And in a way, a good introduction is a bad piece of music or like a boring piece of music that builds up anticipation and suspense until you get the release and the joy of the moment. And I was thinking of like songs I'd listened through to my entire life, and maybe trying to think of songs that I haven't listened to for years that do that. I was sort of thinking like, it must be one that's got the greatest payoff of all. And then I realized what it was, because I remember having this is such a build-up here, isn't it? Having this song on a 12-inch when I was a kid. I bought it on a 12-inch. And when I was a kid, I hated the introduction. Like, I thought, so I used to skip it, just go the good bit. And then I clocked, oh no, the good bit because of the boring bit at the beginning of the song. And it was when I was in my early teens, I got Money for Nothing by Dire Straits, which has that like ridiculously absurd long introduction. I don't. Can you think of the song? I obviously can think of the song, but can you picture the introduction?
Yeah, it's that Sting doing the MTV bit, and then you've just got these weird, like, massively produced, like,
yes, so over the top, and absurd and ludicrously boring. Like it's boring. And I think that the reason why it works so, I mean, when I was a kid, I loved that song because of the riff. The riff was amazing. Like it is a fantastic riff. It's such a bloody good riff, and I just wanted to hear that riff when I was a kid. But going through the process of knowing that it's coming, and you're having to listen to stupid Sting who doesn't belong in the stupid record in the first place, like, not realizing it's Knopfler and his pals doing a bit of postmodernism or whatever. You got to sit through this and all the ridiculous drums and silly Jupiter 8 noises, and just like kind of, we're going to get there, and it builds up, and then finally you get to it, and it kicks in. It's like, damn, what a good riff, and how good it is because of what we've had to sit through.
So what I want to know is, when you approach songwriting, I know that you're not on the phone to Sting or messing around with a Jupiter 8, like, but I want to, I'm sure you spoke about Take Me Out so many times, but the intro to that, people have referenced on this podcast. 2 people have chosen it.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
And that's quite a instant call of arms, that, and it still has the drop as well, yes. Like the payoff. Although obviously it's not 3 minutes getting to it. But when you approach songwriting. And more so now, in the way that when the band probably first started, the way that people listen to music would have been far different to how they get their music now.
Yeah.
And so with the trends in Spotify playlists and things like that, and lots of pop music now being written with start with the chorus and trim that fat off. I know that's always exists to a degree, but the attention span seemed to be getting shorter. Watching my children and their rapid thumbs, it definitely appears to be something that's moving swifter. Does any of that ever filter through to your creative process when you're writing a song, and essentially the intro, Alex?
No. To give you the short answer,
okay.
To expand on it a little bit, I never really write, because I guess there's two sides of it. There's the songwriting and then there's the arranging. And to me, it's the arrangement that usually deals with the introduction. And for Take Me Out, that was certainly the case with that. The start of the song, or what's kind of considered to be the introduction, was actually the verse. Because when I first wrote the song, when I first came up, I was writing it with Nick in my flat, and we had a keyboard going. It was all the one tempo. Like, we had the auto accompaniment bit, and it was kind of the tempo that the second part of the song is. And so now let me get this right. I've got to work out the right order it is. So we had the tempo right for that bit, the I say, don't you know, you say, you don't know, I say, take me out there, and the little riff and stuff. I'd written the words down for the verses. So we worked on the chorus bit and then worked on the verses. I'd written down the words for the verses. And when we played the verses, now the timing was wrong. The verses were actually too fast. So I was trying to so if you imagine, you've got the tempo going, I say, don't you know? I was trying to sing it double time. I was going to go like da 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 da, and it was too fast. And we tried changing the tempo of the song, and so the original structure of the song was quite conventional. It went verse, chorus, with a riff and stuff, and that was the way it was. But the tempo was always wrong. It was either too fast for the verse or too slow for the chorus. And then one day I had this daft idea. I said, well, what if we take the verses and put them into half time and then speed them up to a time where it sounds right, play them like that, but then that beginning bit's going to be too fast. So when we finish all the verses, we'll just slow the whole thing back down again to the tempo of the rest of the song, and that might work. And it kind of did work. Like in terms of the timing and everything, it was really cool. And then other things kind of became apparent after that. So we'd been joking at the time about this idea of sports rock. Like Bob had come across some guy in America in the early days of the internet talking about this genre of sports rock. We'd never heard of this before. It seemed to only exist in America. I think it still does exist in America. And we tried to figure out what it was. It was essentially like Queen and We Are the Champions and Eye of the Tiger by, what are they called again?
Survivor.
Survivor, yes.
Essentially like music for a Rocky training montage.
Yes, that kind of thing. All the kind of thing that would play in stadiums to get people kind of like up about like kind of. And one of the things that I realized was like kind of like it was like a device that was used in a lot of that music was the hits. Like you always got them in Queen, and you also get them in Eye of the Tiger, and so I thought like, because we'd been talking about it, I thought it'd be funny to get some hits in there. And also because it kind of reflected the lyrical theme of the song. So we slowed it down and then did the hits, and then the riff kicked in, the rest of the song started. And so, to answer your question, like I wasn't really thinking about the listener or where, I certainly wasn't thinking about things like, well, streaming didn't exist, but I didn't think about like the radio or anything like that when I was writing that. It was purely as like, this feels good. This feels good when I stick it together. Like, how exciting is it when it slows down? And like, when you hit those hits, damn, it feels good, which I think is the way you should always approach songwriting. Like, I always feel that songs that are written to the formulas that fit in with, current trends and consumption of music always sound a little bit forced, and I don't know. It just doesn't really resonate with me. So to answer the other part of your question, I don't really think about that now. No. But then again, I've always liked songs to be quite direct. I do like the idea of like absurd and out there ideas accompanied by super catchy melodies.
Yeah.
And taking unconventional concepts and putting them into the context of a pop song, essentially. That gives me a big thrill. And pulling off weird musical ideas and nobody noticing.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing in the world. Is like pulling off something that I know is really, really complex, but people don't notice when they listen to it because it just sounds like a banging tune.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to take you back for track 2, Alex, and I'm going to ask you to tell me the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
Well, I was trying to think of this. I was trying to think back to my very, very earliest memories of music. And it would, of course, it would be music that was played by my parents. So, or the music that was around me, the music that was on the radio. And so I was trying to think of those albums that my parents would have had and what I would have listened to that would have had like an emotional impact on me. And I realized it was probably because I remember listening to this song and understanding what it meant and what the lyric was, and it having an effect on me, like just being a bit shocked and like kind of like quite upset about it. And it's funny, like it's a band called Steel Eye Span. You know Steel Eye Span, mm-hmm. The ones who are kind of seen as a kind of unfairly as like a bit of a comedy band because of the Mike Batt produced All Around My Hat, but my mum had a compilation of all of their early songs, their first, I think it's their first 2 albums or something like that. And there was a song on that album called The Lowlands of Holland. And it's an old, either Scottish or Irish folk song. And I'm not sure because there's reference to Galloway in it. I'm not sure whether it's a reference to Galway in Ireland or Galloway near where I live in Scotland. Anyway, the song is about, it's told from the narrative perspective of a young woman whose lover has been press ganged and taken away to sea. And there's a line in it where she's talking to her mother. Her mother's saying like, I forget it. There's plenty of men in Galloway. You should find somebody new, essentially. And her answer to that is, oh, there's man enough in Galloway. Alas, there's none for me. For I never had a love but one, and he's drowned in the sea. And it's funny, like even talking about it now, I get like a little shudder of adrenaline like running through my back, because here I was then listening to this folk rock band in the I guess mid 70s. I would have been listening to that, but it's a very, very old and real. It's a true song, like talking about true lives and real situations and real experiences. And I guess that was one of the earliest moment I can remember of like listening to a piece of music and it transcending from just being a melody or purely music into having emotional insight to the experience of somebody else, and realizing what it was to drown and to die, and trying to get my head around losing somebody like that. It was quite a dramatic and emotional response.
If you could pinpoint that emotion, was it sort of sadness?
Yes, I guess it was like sadness in the form of sympathy or empathy, or unease as well. Like just trying to, because when you're that age, you don't fully understand the concept of death. You know, it takes a while to really understand what it is, but just realizing there's something wrong and that terrible things can happen.
Yeah.
And because that's what I love about music, and it has been that throughout my life, that music often does explain the emotions that we can't comprehend necessarily ourselves immediately, and often can't communicate through words alone. You know, there are some emotions and feelings that we don't communicate verbally. Sometimes it's just a look at somebody. Sometimes it's a physical communication. It can be holding somebody, and sometimes it is through music as well, and sometimes it is through melody, and it's not just lyrically either. And I guess, thinking back on it as well, I guess that's the first time I became aware of what I would now call emotional dissonance within music, which is where you're experiencing more than one thing at once, like where you're feeling a sense of tragedy while the music is uplifting. Yeah. You know, like this music was, and there was something about melodies and the performance by the band, yet there was in the melodic choice and the and particularly the tone of the singer Maddie Pryor, who's like had this amazing, like beautiful clear voice, and there was such a, it was a lament, like it felt like a real lament the way she was delivering it, and to have that with this sort of like stirring nature of the music, yeah, it was feeling more than one emotion simultaneously, which again is one of my favorite things in music. I love that. I love finding music that does that to me. You know, where I'm feeling my heart is salved and torn apart simultaneously. You know, I love that.
Wonderful. Staying in those formative years for the next one, I'm going to ask you, please, for track 3, Alex, to tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please.
Oh, it has to be Madness and Baggy Trousers. You know, so that song, when did that song come out? Like about 1979 or 1980? So it would have been.
I reckon that might have been. Oh, was that first album?
I think it was the first single off the second album.
81, I reckon.
Yeah, you reckon that late?
I reckon
maybe,
so.
Maybe, yeah. Right, my money's on 1980 then. I'm not sure, but either way, it was when I first moved up to Edinburgh. I was in primary school, so I was 7 or 8, something like that, and that came out. And Madness, when you were that age at that time, they were the perfect band for you. They were amazing because they were boisterous, they were naughty, they looked amazing. The music was upbeat and joyous, and you felt like the videos were amazing. It was so good fun, weren't they? I mean, like flying around, playing the saxophone, just being naughty, and like the video for Baggy Trousers was amazing as well. Like there's all the kids running around having a riot, and when you're 7 or 8, that's what you want to do. You do, and I could never quite make out all of the lyrics, but I did get a lot of them, and I knew that there was this sort of like this sense of rebelliousness and kicking against the school system, which, my God, it really resonated. But damn, they looked so sharp as well in their state press trousers and their Dr. Martens and their Crombies and their flat tops. And like, wow, like me and all my pals, that's who we wanted to look like. That's who we wanted to be. Like everybody wanted to be Suggs, you know. Like he was super cool. And yeah, I loved it. I loved it. And it's funny, like I remember a few years ago, being in New York with a bunch of my pals from New York, and I guess they'd missed out on Madness when they were kids. They were about my age, and I guess some people would have known who they were, but they certainly didn't have the resonance that we had. And I was at karaoke with them, and I did Baggy Trousers. Sorry, I did Baggy Trousers, and I was shocked by like how all the lyric just came out in a wanna. I hardly need to look at the screen. I just knew it. It all just came out. It was amazing. And then afterwards, there was all completely silence. And we're like, what the hell was that? Where did that come from? And so I explained, and I was like, oh yeah, it was this great song. And yeah, it's funny, like, because I think the people who you look up to at that age, they really resonate with you and stay with you for the rest of your life. And I've bumped into the guys from Madness and Suggs a couple of times over the years. You know, we've done festivals and he's been on the same lineups and stuff. It's funny, like whenever I sort of like I'm in his company, I still kind of like revert to my 7-year-old self, and I'm kind of a little bit in awe.
Alex, we're the same age, and I grew up in that band. You know, like it was for you, pop stars in the early 80s. You know, there was two choices at my school. You was either into Madness or Adamant. Both was a win-win. Do you know what I mean?
I love both of them. You know, it was a really tight choice for me between Baggy Trousers and Kings of the Wild Frontier.
100%.
I still love that song as well. Like totally amazing and like brilliant. Like, and what I love about both of those bands and those artists are like they're real outsiders. You know, like they're total outside. Came from like subcultures and scenes like way outside the mainstream, and then like sort of like ripped the mainstream apart with what they were doing. And damn, it felt so exciting. And Kings of the Wild Frontier, it's like 3 minutes of feedback, tribal drumming and chanting. Like it's a really radical piece of music. Like both of them, like totally joyous and out there. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, we're pretty jamming being that age at that time.
Oh, absolutely. And I talk about it quite a lot because Baggy Trousers has been chosen several times as well, because I think anybody of a certain age, that just sums up school, because that was everything they sung about was what you was kind of experiencing at school, you know.
Yes.
And I've said it before, but I do think that they're, because of the things that initially jumped at me with Madness was the comedy and the videos in what they do. I think that has not given them the recognition now that they deserve, because as songwriters, like Mike Barson, he's fucking incredible. Like his songs are unbelievable pop songs, and the social commentary at that point to write songs like Embarrassment and things like that were just marvelous. And I think that sometimes they just get kind of dismissed as a lads band, you know, having a knees up. But I think they've wrote some of, and there's a lot. You look at the hits of Madness, and there is a lot of them, and they're all
incredible,
so brilliant. They're well-crafted pop songs.
I absolutely agree with you. And the other thing as well is you're right that there is social commentary, lyrical dexterity, also musical complexity as well. There are some like really bizarre moves and like unconventional sort of things, and like a jamming together of ideas. And Barson, you're right. You know, like they were kind of like, to me, Madness are like the smart kids who sit at the back of the class refusing to answer the teacher's questions. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like they're super smart guys, but like
got their own agenda,
acting a bit dumb to be cool, you know, like but they're not dumb. Like and I think as well, you're right. The perception of Madness suffers from a certain critical snobbery that we have in the UK, which is if there's an element of joy in music or lightheartedness, or God forbid a sense of humor, then it cannot be taken seriously as a piece of art, which is, I don't know, I find it so wrong, particularly when I think of other forms where humor is essential. Like I think of like the greatest art movement of the 20th century was Dada, which is based upon like absurdity and humor as well, and like and turning everything upside down and pointing out those absurdities. And that's what we have in Madness, you know, there is absurdity and there is humor, but there is like a great depth to them as well. And also like a real continuation of a tradition of very British, or particularly English and London songwriting, like going 100%. Back to music hall, through the Kinks, through to them, you know, like
Ian Dury.
Yes, Ian Dury. But I even see elements of Noel Coward as well. There's a sort of detached English observance of the intensity of life, which I love about them. I think they're a great band, and as you say, do not get the recognition they deserve.
Well, when you was at school, 2 questions. Was it something that you enjoyed? And secondly, what did you want to be?
What did I want to? Did I enjoy school? Yes and no, which probably is the same for everyone. You know, like I'm sure, what's the line? What fun we had, what fun we had at that time. It seems so bad. Yeah, I did have a good laugh when I was at school, but at the time it felt bloody awful, and it felt terrible because I was forced to be there, and like nobody wants to be anywhere where they're forced. And so of course I had good times with my friends, and you know, I at that time in my life I enjoyed it. There were sides of school I did not like. You know, I was probably a little bit awkward and a pain in the ass for many teachers, like looking back on it. But yeah, there were certain things I didn't like. I didn't like the authoritarian side of it. It didn't really sit very well with me, and would often, I hated stupid people acting smart, and that's how I felt some of my teachers were, which is probably a bit of a mean thing, probably incorrect, but that's how I felt at the time, you know. Yeah. But yeah, and of course there were negative sides to being at school as well, and various frictions and altercations. But I think everybody has that when they go through school, don't they?
Yeah, yeah. And what did you want to be?
Oh, what did I want to be? You know, when I was about 4, it must have been about 4, because it would have been about maybe 5. It would have been either Christmas 76 or Christmas 77. This would be pre-madness. My mum got me a red plastic electric guitar because I wanted to be a punk. And I didn't keep up the punk thing, but yeah, I definitely always wanted to do that, and I always thought about it. And you know, I started writing songs when I was pretty young, and always wanted to play music. I guess I always presumed that's just what I would do eventually.
Was that creative side of you encouraged at school?
At school, no, definitely not. You know, like thinking back to school, the only creative output outlet rather, within the context of formal education was composition, English. And I loved that. That was great. I loved making up stories. I loved telling stories. Yeah, and I felt, I don't know how, I mean, it's so many years ago. It's like that's 40 years ago, whatever. 30, 40 years ago, I was at school, and it's changed. I'm sure it has changed a lot, but it felt that within the context of teaching music at school, it felt the approach that was taken when I was at school was the same as learning multiplication tables at that time. It was something you learned by rote. You memorized it and you regurgitated somebody else's ideas, which of course is a great idea. Of course, it's part of music. The same way as learning English, you have to learn the mechanics of the language, grammar and spelling, etc. But so much of the joy of music is the writing and the expression and the language of expression which it gives you. And I felt that was completely missing. I remember I briefly had piano lessons for like a couple of months, and my mum had taken me to a fireworks display in Edinburgh, like when I moved up to Edinburgh, like in Princess Street Gardens, and it was amazing. This brilliant fireworks display, and there was an orchestra playing at the same time as the fireworks display. It was in the gardens where they have the amphitheater thing. Like just all of Edinburgh was down there, and they were playing Tchaikovsky's 1812 overture. You know, it's the one that bom bom ba ba da ba da ba da ba, and then they shoot off the cannons as part of the thing, like boom. It was so dramatic, and I loved it as a kid, like fireworks and explosions and this dramatic music. I remember I'd come home and I'd worked it out. We had this old beat up piano that never stayed in tune in the house. And I remember like going to the piano and working it out and going, it was like dong, dang, 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 dang. I was like, oh yeah, that's how that tune goes. And then going to this piano lesson and the teacher saying, do you know anything on the piano? Can you play anything on the piano? And I said, oh yeah, I can play. Listen to this. I can play this. I heard this the other day. I can play this tune. And she went, how did you learn that? Do you read music? And I was like, no, I just worked it out. And she gave me this terrible row and said, you must never, ever, ever do that again. That is learning the wrong way. You have to read music. You should never work things out by ear. And I just remember being so shocked and like feeling really kind of chuffed with myself because I'd worked out this wee tune.
Yeah.
And so I felt that side of musical expression was missing when I was a kid. I'm sure it's not now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so weird that I had piano lessons as well, and I'd had a piano, and I just taught myself how to play a few songs, and then when the piano teacher came to my house, like literally was like, "What are you doing with your fingers?" And I was like, "Oh, that's just how I." And it was like, "No, you don't do it like that." And it was like I broke all the rules, and it's like, well, hang on a minute, like there's got to be something said for a bit of DIY culture here, and so, you know, sussing it out for yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It was frowned upon, but hopefully not so much now. For track 4, Alex, I'm going to ask you please to tell me the first song you remember buying from a record shop, please.
Well, I remember it would have been in a record shop in Greece when I was a kid, and there was because my dad's Greek, I used to go to Greece all the time and spend my holidays there, see my grandparents and hanging around. And at some point in the mid 70s, I think the song came out in 1975, so it might have been 76. There was a song called Tupuzar, right? And so this song, it's kind of like a Greek novelty song. It's kind of like, sonically, it's kind of like up there with Moldy Old Dough or something like that. You know, like it was like a novelty song, and it was on the radio everywhere when I was in Greece that year, and it was always being played. And I asked my dad if we could go in and we could buy that. So I think that's probably my first example of buying something from a record shop. And it's a funny song because it's kind of like a mixture of moogs and bouzouki, and it's super catchy. And it's a ding 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 ding. I can hum it, like I know it so well. It's part of my essence. But I was talking to my dad about it recently, and I'm going to look up what he said to me because I was asking about what it meant, and it was written by a guy called Markopoulos, who was a really fascinating composer. Like he was a composer, and Greece at that time had just come out of a military junta. So Greece was ruled by a junta of a dictatorship of colonels. Like there were these colonels in the army, and the song was written like a great protest, like as great protest songs often are, kind of like disguised as nonsense lyrics, like a criticism of the state, because if you wrote them overtly, you would end up in jail with like electrodes attached to the bits of your body you wouldn't want anything attached to. And he was so like my dad's talking about the lyrics, and he was saying apparently the theme of the song is about a guy whose plane crashes, and he lands on this island that's full of cannibals, and it's about the cannibals chasing him around the island and wanting to eat him. And the lyrics translated something like, the leaders march and his dogs follow. You hold your nose because of the stench. What you fail to realize is that the animals that ate you died because they were poisoned by your corpses. And like, this is my dad translating the lyric, and it's all sort of in the context of this sort of nonsense song. And it's kind of amazing to think that in my lifetime, in the country that's half of my heritage, like that was the way protest songs had to be delivered, and in the guise of nonsense.
Yeah, probably reached far bigger numbers than had it have been a Billy Bragg type thing with a guitar just barking it at someone.
Yes, I think so as well, and probably like had a wiser thing, because it's the sort of thing. To me, that's when music can be truly subversive. You know, if he kept that song as an obscure, difficult piece of music, then it would have stayed on the fringes. But for it to get into the mainstream, to be played on Greek radio, the equivalent of Radio 1 every day, and then people talking to each other and saying, you know what it's really about, of course. Yeah. And then that's amazing. To me, it's the most subversive thing you could do with a piece of music. Like how wonderful that is. I mean, I still love like the idea of a good protest song as a unifying and overt piece of music. Like the one that comes to my mind is Bella Ciao, you know, the partisan song from Italy, yeah, what, and again, illustrating the power of music and protest in a different way.
I'm going to move things forward a little bit in time now for track 5 to the song that soundtrack your year's clubbing, please, Alex.
My club years, I was trying to think of something that, that felt so like universal. I was trying to think of a song because when I was always quite Catholic in my tastes when it comes to music, and when I went out to clubs as well, and so. And I always liked the people who weren't snobby about their music, because I often found with clubbing, there were, you know how clubbers can often be, they can be very specific to their own particular subgenre of subgenre, you know, oh no, I don't like intelligent house, I like deep intelligent house or whatever, you know, or some bullshit like that, you know, and like how. And so I was trying to think of a piece of music that was universal that I would hear at an indie disco, or I would hear in a good club as well, you know, like a house club or something like that. And it has to be Daft Punk and Around the World.
Oh, what a record.
And I choose that because of its universal appeal. The clubbers loved it, the indie kids loved it, the pop fans loved it, everybody loved that piece of music. And again, how powerful it was. And they loved it because it just made you want to get up and dance, which is what a piece of dance music should do, you know, and it was simultaneously cool, innovative, and universally appealing. Damn, who gets to pull that off? That's amazing. And I do still love it. And when I hear it now, and I guess that song was kind of like my introduction to the whole kind of like French touch sort of scene, like what Cassius were doing, and then like leading on to the guys in Justice, etc. And we got to, I'm very fortunate, we got to work with Philippe Zadar of Cassius on our last record, and what an amazing experience that was. I love that. I love him and the Daft guys and that whole scene. It was very cool. Like taking what was essentially an American form of underground club music and filtering it through the Parisian taste. Oh, damn, it's perfect. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And at that time it was, and I guess that a lot of that stuff that was happening with like Kitsune and things like that, and Ed Banger and that was all around the time that I guess that France were coming to fruition, really. Am I right in saying that? It was around that time scale, wasn't it?
So yeah, I guess Daft Punk would have been a little bit before, but yeah, but it continued.
That track would have been, yeah, definitely.
Yes, yeah. So that particular track would, but you're right. What came afterwards and what that opened up was definitely happening around about the time of us. And sure, like I loved what Kitsune were doing and Ed Banger and all those guys. They were cool, and there were always two sides to what we were doing as a band. Like, you know, we loved the clubs and we loved the rawness of rock and roll. And I think those guys got that as well. They understood that it would. You didn't have to be a snob about it. You could like embrace what was good about all of those worlds. And I loved that, and I loved seeing what they were doing. And there were always good surprises coming from them. And again, just joyousness. You know, like really fucking good time music. Absolutely. Some of that Kitsune stuff. I'm a club promoter, and I know that you was a club promoter as well. And yeah, around that time, like I used to book, I'm trying to think, Jerry Bouthier a lot, and some of his DJ sets like was just incredible. And I had this idea, I never got it off the ground, but I wanted to do this club night. I've never spoken about this, I don't know why I'm bringing it up now, but I want to have this night called Pardon, and it would be PAR for Paris and DOM for London, and put it together. Amazing.
And have this night called Pardon, which would have literally just been a hybrid of what was going on in the London indie scene and what was going on in Paris with all the stuff that was happening out there at that time. Never got it off the ground, but yeah, it's one of them ideas. I thought that's a good little catchy name, that.
That's brilliant. It's certainly better than Loris. No, it's good. That's cool. But you're right, like because London did feel exciting, like, and there were good things happening club wise in London too. And New York, like but it did feel like an excitement, that moment from the late 90s. Glasgow too, like the Optimal Boys, I felt were part of that sort of scene as well. And and doing over New York, like with the DFA thing too, like it really did feel like any good sort of musical movement where it felt like there was a destruction of barriers between genres, which I always find exciting.
Absolutely. And a lot of that was happening at Trash as well in London, which, you know, if we're talking club nights, what a hybrid night that was of incredible genres.
Yeah, brilliant. Like Errol and Rory and all those guys, fantastic stuff.
Okay, I'm going to take you home for track 6, and I'm going to ask you, please, Alex, to tell me a favourite song from an artist from your home county, please. Where's home? Where are you going?
Home for me is Glasgow. Okay. You know, so I have to choose a Glasgow band. Fortunately, stroke unfortunately, that gives me a hell of a lot to choose from. I'm going to choose Orange Juice and Falling and Laughing. I love that song. Like I love it on so many levels. So many levels. Like from a wider cultural, sociological, music industry revolutionizing level, like the way that Postcard Records completely wrote what it meant to be as a musician or a band, that you could be independent and like yourself. Like that was so revolutionary, like had such an impact on me, and being in the Glasgow scene 10-15 years later, like it was Edwin and Alan Horn and all those boys, like what they did all those years earlier really opened it up for us, and they kind of like gave us an example to follow. But we're talking about music here, and what an incredible piece of music that is. What an incredible piece of songwriting it is. Both lyrically and musically. A great, winsome, bittersweet, poetic piece of lyricism. I've got the lyrics here as well, because I want to talk about they're so beautiful. You must think me very naive, taken as true. I only see what I want to see. Avoid eye contact at all costs. What can I do to see your fine white teeth smiling at me? You might say that we should build a city of tears. All I'm saying is I'm alone, and consequently only my dreams satisfy the real need of my heart. I resist. Oh my God, poetry. It's amazing. What a brilliant lyricist Edwin is, you know, I love it. And then with that incredible dexterous guitar playing, and that was again so disrespectful of the barrier between musical genres of that. They were coming in with the attitude of punk, but listening to Chic. Yeah. When you had folk like burning their disco records because it wasn't real. And there were a lot of people in the punk rock scene who had a really snobbish attitude towards disco, and they didn't, and they embraced it and loved it. And yeah, I love it beyond description.
And let's also throw in the mix that they looked cool as fuck as well.
Yeah, they certainly did, didn't they? Yeah, and they didn't look like your regular idea of a macho rock star either. I've always loved that, you know, like, because I guess partly because I know I will never be your regular idea of a macho rock star myself. So like, I guess it's guys like Edwin or Brian Ferry or even Terry Hall. They were the kind of guys that I kind of felt like, oh yeah, you're not the kind of macho guys. Like yeah, I can relate to you, you know. And you're right, they really did. And they also just seem to have like a good gang mentality about them as well. Like they seem to be like having their own world and their own universe, inviting you in. If you wanted to join, you were cool and you were welcome. But damn, we were different from everybody else. It was great.
And I totally agree that for me, you know, in the 90s as well, Jarvis Cocker was just the super unlikely pop star.
Another great example, yeah.
Just different level cool.
Yes, totally. And again, totally unmacho as well. And dressing, like all these characters as well, they've got the thing of dressing rather eccentrically as well. Yeah. And I think that's something peculiar to British music as well. That's something you find a lot more in British music than maybe you find in America, or is a different type of eccentricity in America. And I know that sometimes we found a little bit of like kind of like incomprehension when we went over to the States, like I won't use the word they used to describe it because it's a particularly awful word, but like let's say we were a little bit too effeminate for them to totally get their heads around.
Oh no.
Yeah, but yes, I love that. I love those guys, and totally had that. Yeah, so good.
Right, for your last track, you get to be tastemaker, influencer, whatever you want to call it. Alex, please tell me a song that you think many people may not know that you would like them to hear, please.
Right. Okay. Well, I don't know how well known this song is. It's not a new song, but it's a song that I've loved for a really long time. So, like, since I had a girlfriend, like my first sort of like long-term girlfriend in the early 90s had this album by Dory Previn called Mythical Kings and Iguanas. And on that, we used to listen to that record a lot. We used to listen to that and Leonard Cohen. And there's a song on that album called "The Lady with the Braid." Do you know that song?
I don't know.
Right. Okay. It's an amazing piece of music. So Dory Previn was married to Andre Previn, and he left her for Mia Farrow. And Dory, I guess she was a musician, but she went into therapy and to deal with, like, I think she had a complete physical and mental breakdown with the shock of that breakup. And during her process of therapy, she began songwriting to express her emotions and where she was. And so you have this sort of remarkably emotionally open songwriting, musically very dexterous as well, but lyrically, this one, I don't know how autobiographical it is. It's about this woman having a one-night stand, the lady with the braid of the title, and the way she describes just the minutiae of the encounter, it's really heartbreaking. So she describes him coming in and she's sort of saying, and at the beginning, musically and lyrically, it's really light-hearted at the beginning of the song. And she's talking about oh, you can put your denim jacket on the hook over there. And like, so leading through, you can, if you can stay till sunrise, it's completely your decision. You can you can leave your razor over there on the shelf. I papered that wall myself. Just put your clothes on the coverlet my cousin hand crocheted. And there's like all these very, very personal lyrics. And then at one point, she sings something about how she doesn't want him to leave. When you wake up, will you leave? It's just the night cuts through me like a knife. And suddenly she reveals all of her vulnerability and how much she needs company and how much she needs love. And oh my goodness, it's so heartbreaking when she does it. And then the music shifts again. And she tries to laugh it off, and she says like, "Oh, I don't know what made me say that. I have this funny sense of humor. You know, I could not be downhearted if I tried. And again, beautiful lyrics, and like capturing the humanity and the vulnerability of a moment of somebody's life. And you're not sure if it's autobiographical or fictional, but it's a totally genius piece of songwriting. And I think all of us songwriters should aspire to write something as beautiful and as powerful as this astonishing song.
Wonderful. Well, Alex, we put together a Spotify playlist to accompany the podcast. So the link will be in the bio for this episode, so people can go and listen to all of the songs that you've chosen today. And obviously, we'll put some Franz music in there. And with that in mind, tell us about what's going to be coming up professionally.
Right. So at the moment, we're putting together an LP called Hits to the Head, which is, well, as you might guess, like a compilation of all of the songs we've released over the last 18 years. Like it's 2004 that our first album came out. And so it actually starts 2003 with Darts to Pleasure, the first single we released, up to Curious and Billy Goodbye, the last two singles we've just put out. So it's been nice. We've been putting that together, and we'll be touring as well. We're going to start touring in April, and I believe that the UK shows were moved, so they'll be back in October. Damn, wait back on the road. It's been so long. You know, I've played my first gig when I was about 18 and never really went for more than 6, the maximum, without, and to have gone for 2 years without playing a gig, it's driving me insane. We had a show a few weeks ago in Dunfermline. We played as part of Venues Week, and oh man, it felt so good. I really savored it. It was astonishing. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to being back on the road again. Oh,
wonderful. Alex, honestly, thank you so much for your time today, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure talking records with you. And yeah, I hope you have the best time playing those shows, mate. And best of luck with the new record. And yeah, thanks again, mate.
Yeah, thanks very much. Really nice talking to you. Nice to chat about some of these tunes.
Oh, lovely. I'm going to press stop, but don't go anywhere.
Right.